Maryland beats Illinois, upsets them 76-67. Jahmir Young, this was one of those games where Jahmir Young and Julian Reese just completely dominated the game. When you let those two guys dominate, there's not many teams that are going to win comfortably against this team. And unfortunately for Illinois, it just seemed to be one of those days. And I guess the bright side is it's been one of those weeks, one of those days for just about every team in the top 25 right now, because teams are just falling away as we go. There's another team, which we'll talk about next, Wisconsin. They're not falling away, so they're really hot right now. But of course, Illinois, I don't know if there's too many bad things we can say about this team, but this was definitely not a day that Illinois fans wanted to see. So, Shafts, we'll give you the floor first. What were your thoughts on this game?
Kind of half expected the way we always play against Maryland. For some reason, we bring out the best in them, and they bring out the worst in us. Brad is 2-7 in his career against Maryland, seems to dominate most every other team in the Big Ten except for Maryland. I don't know why they have his number. We were kind of due for a clunker, I guess. We had a lot of momentum coming into this game, but we just looked dead tired. We basically been playing with 6 players in the rotation. And against Michigan State, a lot of those guys played nearly 40 minutes. And so you could tell just halfway through this game that we basically had nothing in the second half. We tried to fight and claw, but shots just weren't falling. Missing layups left and right. Balls were going halfway down. Marcus Damask still had a good game, but missed a lot of shots that he's been hitting lately. Those contested, in the lane shots that are real difficult, but he usually hits them. And tonight it just wasn't falling for him. Quincy Guerrier, same story. He was getting to the rim, but nothing was going in for him. Coleman Hawkins got into foul trouble in the first half. That kind of really doomed us because we know that Dane Danger just can't play. He can't be relied on for more than a few minutes when you're playing against real competition. He's going to dominate the Eastern Illinois of the world, but he's just not good enough to play in the Big Ten against real competition. So we've been lucky so far because Hawkins really hasn't gotten into foul trouble. We haven't been put into this situation yet, and it was clear that Maryland had a game plan to go at him. And Willard even said it in the postgame that, hey, we know how important Coleman Hawkins is to this team. So our game plan was to just throw the ball into Julian Reese and let him pound Coleman Hawkins. And it's a real tough matchup for him because Reese is just really long, really strong and athletic. And it was just a tough matchup for him. Maryland was getting whatever they want in the paint. It was basically a 2-man game for Maryland, and we just didn't have enough in the tank really when it came down the stretch of that game.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy. 48 of Maryland's 76 points came from Jahmir Young and Julian Reese just themselves. Those two guys, Jahmir Young, he played 40 minutes in this game. Did not come off the court once. So when I heard people talking about that, this Illinois team looks tired. Don't get me wrong, they did look tired, but I was thinking to myself, man, Jahmir Young coming in there and played 40 minutes. Because I thought halfway through the game, I was like, I don't think I've seen Jahmir Young go out once. And sure enough, I looked and I was like, yeah, he's not been out once. And then I looked later at 30 minutes. I was like, yep, still not been out. So just a wild game. And, that's what this Maryland team needs to do. I mean, they need to rely on Jahmir Young and Julian Reese, especially when the 3-point shooting is not falling. It didn't fall for Jahmir Young in this game either, 0 for 4 from 3-point range. So they still have a lot to figure out there. But you hit the nail on the head there, Shaps. When Julian Reese was able to get in there and get Coleman Hawkins in foul trouble, he was just kind of ready to eat, because I do think Dane Danger's a good offensive player, but he provides nearly no defense for guys down low against Julian Reese, and especially how good the Big Ten players are down low.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And really, Maryland didn't even play that well, to be honest. We shot better from 3. We shot better at the free throw line. We out rebounded them. and still they beat us because of what was going on in the paint, and we couldn't finish, and they were. So yeah, and we just, like I said, we were totally gassed. A lot of guys just like on their knees, mouth open in that second half, and we've been playing with a short bench for a while now without Shannon, and everyone kept looking around to see, like, okay, who's going to save us, and nobody was coming to save them today.
Yeah. Kent, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, you guys pretty much talked about everything I wrote down already. You didn't discuss totally the stat points in the paint. The post game, they talked about this. It was 52-26 for Maryland. I was surprised by that. I've kind of been looking for Julian Reese to have a game like this all year. It feels like he hasn't really had that game, maybe a couple times throughout the year, but pretty surprised, to be honest, that he had that game against Illinois of all people. But as Shaps was saying, probably tired, and then with Coleman Hawkins having the foul trouble, that's what's going to happen in that game. Here's what I'm looking at for these two teams, though. First of all, let's start with Illinois, because we got an Illinois guy on. This loss concerns me zero about this team, because I think that this team has already proven what they are. I'm not worried about this at all. I think they're still a double-bye Big Ten tournament team. I think that they're still going to be very highly ranked in the NCAA tournament, and this is just one of those losses that happen. Even though it was at home, it's just one of those losses that happens in this conference. I'm not worried about that at all. What I'm more interested in is the Maryland side of it. You look at their next 5 games. At Northwestern, they play Michigan State at both places, and then Iowa and Nebraska. If they play like this, there's no reason they can't lose, or I'm sorry, there's no reason they can't win 4 out of those 5 games, I think. The problem is they haven't played like this all year. So it's like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, unfortunately for Illinois fans, it came on the day that they're playing Illinois. But I do not expect this to continue. I really don't. I come out of this game taking basically nothing from it, because Illinois loses and I'm not worried about Illinois, and Maryland wins and I'm not getting any more excited about them. So that's just how I feel after watching this game.
Yeah, I kind of agree, Kent. It's just one of those games for Illinois. Like, in the long run, probably not a big deal. You're just, everyone's going to have these clunkers. The only problem with it, and the reason I was upset in the moment, was to try and keep pace with Wisconsin and Purdue. You got to protect your home court, right, especially against a bad team. And that's what Maryland has been for this season so far. And yeah, like I said, Maryland does this to us every year. Last year it was Dante Scott, who just came out of nowhere and destroyed us. This year it's Reese. So yeah, I don't think it indicates really anything for Maryland's future, because whatever it is, they have our number.
I don't think that even matters, though, too. Sorry, JR, to cut you off. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, too, like, because I thought about that for a split second, too, about, like, keeping up with Purdue and Wisconsin as far as, like, winning the Big Ten outright. To me, that doesn't matter, though. Like, that's just it's a banner, but it's a pointless banner. Like, what really matters is, like, how prepared you are going into March. And I think that Illinois will be fine. It doesn't really matter who wins the Big Ten outright. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to discuss, and like it's fun to track throughout the year. But what really matters is the NCAA tournament and how prepared you are for that, and how ready you are to go in that tournament.
I was just going to say, we have a Terps fan here, Terps guy, and I see what you guys are saying about Maryland, and I'm not trying to be a Maryland apologist here or, crown them as, top 4 team in the league, because I don't think they are. But I do think that we saw from Maryland, kind of like I said earlier, exactly what they need to do in order for them to get wins in this conference. They need Jahmir Young to just go absolutely off in games and just take over the game. We were hoping that they wouldn't have to do that this year, that, Geronimo and DHS, Deshaun Harris-Smith, they would be able to contribute some to that. But as long as those guys aren't helping contribute on the offensive end to the level that they were hoping, obviously they had some points today, so I'm not saying they're completely worthless, but as long as those guys are not being able to do what was expected early on in the season, this is what Maryland needs to happen every single game. Jahmir Young is going to have to play 36 plus minutes. I don't think he has to play 40 like he did in this game, and he's just going to have to be stellar on offense, and Julian Reese needs to, play well on offense too and get guys in foul trouble. But kind of the same thing you talked about, Shaps, with Coleman Hawkins getting in foul trouble. It's kind of the same thing with Maryland if Julian Reese gets in foul trouble. So it's almost like, can Julian Reese get the other guy in foul trouble, or can they get Julian Reese in foul trouble? And it goes from there. I do want to ask really fast before we move on from here, what do you guys feel like in the Big Ten, and maybe the tournament as possible, what do you guys feel like is the ceiling for this Maryland team before the end of the year? Do we think NIT, NCAA tournament, top half of the Big Ten? Just by watching them and kind of what you know about Maryland, what do you feel like is kind of the ceiling for this team? Kent, I'll let you go first.
I mean, making the NCAA tournament has to be the ceiling, I would say. But I don't expect that to happen. Just based on I go through their schedule, some of the teams that they've lost to this year already, and nothing's really changed on their roster. It's just a matter of like, if they want to play hard like they did today, then they do better, it seems like. And then, most of the season watching Maryland, it's been what are they doing offensively, and they can't really get stops. It just happened to be today they were like the Maryland of old. Jahmir Young was back and everybody was back all of a sudden. I don't know. They're too up and down for me to say that they're going to consistently be able to get enough wins to for sure get into the tournament, but that's definitely their ceiling to me. Like getting into the tournament, a low seed, like a double-digit seed, and then like not getting to the second weekend for sure.
So would you say like maybe an 8, 9, 10 spot in the Big Ten, and then
for the Big Ten specifically, I would say somewhere between like 8 and 12. Yeah,
gotcha.
8 and 12 seed.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched enough Maryland games to understand like what is driving this inconsistency. Is Jahmir Young just hot and cold, or is he not getting enough help from the role players? But yeah, I mean, Maryland was picked, I think, to finish 3rd, 4th in the conference by most people. So I can understand why people are pretty down on them after this start, and why Willard is probably catching a lot of flack from their fans.
Oh yeah, I think the Turtleheads had fired him like 12 times this season already. So Tricky let us know they're officially firing Kevin Willard on their podcast. So, or at least he is. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.